Hello, fellow duelists and chumps alike. We are going to be talking, or I guess my opinion on deck variety and I guess formats where any deck can win is more fun when there's more than just 2 or 3 decks. First things first is you get more people into the game, which is always good. Any kind of formats where there's a lots of people playing the game is always good. Another reason is when you're playing the game and there's a good variety of decks, you have to think outside the box of, I'm instead of me just using the searching effect of the take Fighting Flame Swordsman for example, I have to use the negation effect, or I use the when an attack is declared involving a fire warrior or monster you control, you can target one card on the field and destroy it, instead of just using the searching effect. Or just you have to think about, it's the same thing with this card, right? It makes you have to think about what, or only using Lost Win on very specific monsters, or I have to play a very specific set of side deck, or I have to play a very specific extra deck, or whatever. I think when that happens, you lose less of what makes the game fun and interesting. Like when something like this, and where is it? I think it's this. This is also good and fun. It makes it to where someone who's a new player or an old player coming into the game again being like, oh my god, there's all these decks that are good. I can play what I want, not what I have to, right? There might be some cards you might have to play Pot, or Pot of Extravagance, or you might have to play, like, I don't know, Dark Hole, or Lightning Storm. There might be some cards that or you might just have to play like Nibiru, but your deck can be whatever it wants to be, right? Or you might have to play, Ash Blossom or whatever, but you can play what you want, not just, you have to play what put in best deck. And the more variety you have, the more fun you can have as a player, as a spectator, and when you hear all these competitive players, the format's not good if any deck's good. Well, then that means you're not really that good at the game, because you can't look at a particular situation and find a way out of it. Yes, there will always be matchups that you go up against that you can't beat, but it shouldn't be like that every single game when it's only these 3 decks are the best. If you want to play something different, you have to play this particular rogue deck, or you have to play this particular deck on, like, you have to play this particular rogue strategy, or you have to play this engine, which is not as fun as, you only have to play like this particular hand trap or this particular trap card to have fun at the game, or have a decent time playing the game, because the the more variety of decks you have, the more you can you can build your your extra deck and your main deck to be flexible, right? The more flexible you can be at the game, the better you can be at the game, at least in my opinion, and it be more fun than just, oh, if you play this particular engine, you win every game. That's boring. When there's a variety of good decks and they're relatively even, but the only thing that might determine a win is the skill of the players and not necessarily the cards. And I guess you could say, oh, but three deck formats mean you can do that. No, it doesn't. Because it comes down to memorization more than skill. Right? Oh, I remembered the combo better than you, that's why I won. That's not as fun as, oh, I activated Solemn Judgment at this moment instead of that moment, or I used Lightning Storm on your back row early in the game or late in the game that determines the duel. Then, oh, I special summoned out a bunch of monsters that even if you did have Dark Hole Raigeki or Solemn Judgment, it didn't matter because I could negate it. Right? When it's so narrow where the only thing that determines a win is who can memorize something better, that's not fun or fun to watch because you can determine who's going to win just on a handful of cards where the variety of play is more fun to watch. Even as a competitive player, you can admit variety is more interesting because it's like, oh, I have to think about what I'm going to do next, not just doing the motions, right? Doing the motions can be fun depending on the situation, but 90% of the time just going through the motions is not as fun as just playing something like the goof like this being good in a wide variety of format is way more fun than this being good only where there's 3 good decks. Because what I think a lot of people forget about this discussion is when you're playing online and you face the same 3, especially like, let's say you're on break at work or you're at lunch or you're wanting to relax and play the game, when you face the same 3 decks over and over and over again, it's very boring. I think that's what people are forgetting about this discussion is it's not just like physical play we're talking about. We're talking about online play, right? Something like an online simulator is very boring when there's only 3 decks you're facing, or there's only 2 decks you're facing. Like when Tier Limits was like the best deck, or when when there's only like 4 decks or 3 decks that are really good, it's very boring to play against because you're like, oh man, I should have been just playing X deck against X deck instead of, oh, my Goofy Flame Swordsman deck does pretty good against pretty much everything. And that's more fun and more interesting than just, oh, you should have been playing meta, dude. So, variety is good. Three deck formats can be fun, but it depends on, I think, that 3 deck format, and it has to be like something that I guess that's like easy to get into and not have such a high ceiling to get into, if that makes sense. It can be fun, but 90% of the time it isn't fun. And that's all I have to say on that.